Hello everybody. So I haven't had any likes or comments about my last two videos, but I have got a few more views than I normally do, like 3 and 2. And look, I'm just going to continue with that feel. And so today I'm going to actually talk about race, as in, skin colour, that kind of thing. And once again, these are things that are I've spent my life sort of researching these sorts of things and working out what's going on. And look, as far as I know, everything I'm saying here is completely and utterly true. And yeah, but most people are unaware of them. So, first thing to think about race is that most people think of us as having 3 types of races, and they're variously described as well, the one is perhaps African or sub-Saharan African or Southern African or black. That's the one. Second one is perhaps Western European, sometimes European, Caucasian, white. And the third one is perhaps Chinese or Asian, in some cases yellow. And yellow, strangely enough, yellow is sometimes considered offensive. I don't know why, but there you go. Now, of course, the skins aren't actually white, black or yellow. These are just terms that we're using. But there's a very common perception that there are 3 races, or at least 3 main races, and that they're the 3, and then you can split them up into other ones. Now that's a common belief that a lot of people have. A common description, not necessarily trying to be mean, but more just descriptive. And you get people being proud to be black, being proud to be white, being proud to be Asian, and so forth. Now we actually go beyond those 3 with a lot of people. So some people will say, well, Native Americans are a separate race. And of course Native Americans, both North and South America, consider themselves to be red. Now they're not literally red, but that's what they call themselves. And then you have, for example, people in India and the whole Indian subcontinent often describe themselves as being brown. Now they call themselves Caucasian as well, but sometimes they'll call themselves brown-skinned, and you hear that every so often. Now I've never personally heard of any other colours being used. I've never heard of any blue, green, pink, not even pink. And you think pink is a pretty common colour. I've never heard of yellow, orange either. I have heard of yellow, but anyway, there are actually a lot of people that claim they're more than those races. There's the Latin race, or the Latino, or the South American race. And then you have things like Tamil, and I mean that's just a region of India. And then you have Punjab, and then you have Kurd, and all different ones. And in some places you have several different races within the same country, or even within the same city, and they're all native to that country or region. And you can get, I've heard people say 1,000 different races. I've heard 10,000. And look, people are very proud of their race, whatever, but in some ways it's sort of like, well, are you being a little bit silly? Is it really a separate race when you're pretty much identical to somebody else? I mean, even like if we go from the Chinese races, is it really true that there's 15 different races in China that are native to China? It does seem to get a little bit silly. And then we get the people that are mixed, and they say, well, I'm part this race and I'm part that race, and they're talking about 1,000 different ones, sometimes 10,000. And sometimes in some places there's money associated, such as here in Australia. If you're Aboriginal, then you can claim financial support for that. And in some countries that we have that sort of thing, sometimes you get into certain organisations and so forth, and yeah, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're worse. You don't want to admit to having Irish blood in you, or maybe you do, or all sorts of things like this. It becomes a little bit political. Now, in answer to this question, how many races are there? And I wanted to go back to the science of it. Now, the science of it says there's only one race. At the moment, at least. Now, that's not to say there's only ever been one race, because there have been others in the past. If we go back through human history, we've discovered at least 100 distinct species of humans over the years. And this is going back to, of course, that 8 million years ago when the first human bones, or at least hominid, and again I'm going to call them human just for the sake of this argument. Some people can debate when they became human. But 8 million years ago in Chad and or Ethiopia. And so we've had at least 100 different species of humans in that time. Now Homo sapiens was not the first. But we didn't look like this, we didn't act like this 8 million years ago. We looked nothing like this, or very little like this. So we evolved, and the evolution isn't in a straight line. So it's not like we had this one and then it was replaced neatly by this other one. No. We actually had as many as 20 at the same time. And what happened in a lot of cases was when we had several of them, they actually fought with each other, and one would wipe out the other. So for example, you had one little group that was in Indonesia for a little while, then the Homo sapiens came along and killed them all. And we actually had that the Homo sapiens emerged victorious, not as the most recent one, because there were others that came after Homo sapiens, but we were the ones that, and we're not the oldest either, but we were the ones that went around and killed everybody. So in an action that probably should be described as genocide. But every human left alive today, are responsible or genetically responsible for that genocide against the other species of humans. Now we don't know who attacked first, because that hasn't been recorded. I'm certainly not aware of any recordings of what happened there. But we know for a fact that they weren't all isolated. Because even though Neanderthal, and that's based on the name from Neanderthal Valley in Germany, they actually were in the same areas as the Homo sapiens. They didn't just limit themselves to Germany, they went all around the world. And also Denisovans, I'm probably saying it wrong. Now they were from a cave in Siberia. Well, that's where the Denisovan cave, that's what it's named after, but they weren't limited to Russia. They went all around, and in fact they interbred not only with Homo sapiens, I should say, but also with Neanderthals. So we have people that are not anymore. I don't believe there is currently anyone who's part Neanderthal, part Denisovan, but there are fossils of people that were. And there's people alive today that are part Neanderthal, part Homo sapien, and part Denisovan and part Homo sapien, alive today. Now, so that actually creates 3 distinct groups that are alive today. 3 race theory, we're going to get into that. So one group is pure Homo sapiens. Now, this group is in sub-Saharan Africa. They're not really outside of that. And so the southern 2/3 of Africa, for people not aware of that term, sub-Saharan, that's what that means. And so we have one group there. The second group is mostly Homo sapien, but have a little bit of Neanderthals. How much depends on the person. It can be 3%, 6%, 9%, occasionally even 12%. And they are all around the world, by the way, including sub-Saharan Africa. And the third group is the group that has part Denisovan DNA and part Homo sapien DNA. Once again, I'm not aware of anyone that has Denisovan and Neanderthal, but there probably are. But this Denisovan group is mainly focused around Russia and the ethnic group called the Slavs. So there used to be a whole massive big empire called the Czechoslovakian Empire or Yugoslavian Empire with Slav in it, and they're not there anymore. Both those empires have fallen apart. The Germans actually had a genocide against the Slavs, as well as the Jews, but the Slavs, a lot of them died, and hasn't really been recorded much. Slav, of course, that's where we get the name slave from. It's from Slav, and these people are gigantic. These are much bigger than most people. Now, the original Denisovans, which they're based on, we don't actually have a complete skeleton, but estimates have ranged from 9 feet, or 2.8 metres tall, right up to 18 feet, or 5.6 metres tall. So these are giants in what we would describe as giants. There's nobody alive today that is as big as they were. And they were killed. So they were still humans, but we killed them. So they must have evolved to be absolutely enormous for whatever reason. And so we killed them. Neanderthals were particularly smart, and we killed them. So somehow we were the inferior species, but we won through. However, and I don't want to say, that some people would say, oh yeah, Denisovans, that's Asians. Neanderthals, that's white people. And pure Homo sapiens must be the Africans that we talk about. But it's not like that actually, because the melanin, it's only melanin that makes our skin dark, and that's to protect us from the sun's harmful rays. And that's not unique to Homo sapiens. So all species of humans had that. They were all dark skinned. So all 100 different species, or perhaps not all of them, because for different reasons they evolved into having lighter skin, and that's separate to their species. So Denisovans may have had darker skin, we don't know. Neanderthals were actually described as having red skin, but that goes back to the Adamu and the Adam and Eve and all that. But that may not have been literal. They may have had darker skin, we're not sure. There's a different, completely separate reason for why people have lighter skin. It's not to do with race. It has nothing to do with race. So anyway, and so it's not to say that Denisovans are all Slavs or that all Slavs are Denisovans. They're not. Most of them are Homo sapiens mixed with Neanderthals and so forth, and it gets a bit complex. We're actually not sure because not everyone's had that DNA test to prove that. But there's in the world today, there are people with, most people are either pure Homo sapiens or mostly Homo sapiens, but there are people with Neanderthal, most people have some Neanderthal, and there's a lot of people with Denisovan as well, but that doesn't make them different races. Now these people would have had a war of some kind. It's not really described in history, so we're not sure what happened, but we know that Homo sapiens have been around for over 1 million years, and or perhaps almost 1 million years. Neanderthals came around from about 400,000 years ago until about perhaps 6,000 years ago, maybe 10,000, we're a bit unsure about that. And Denisovans came around maybe 120,000 years ago and disappeared perhaps 30 or 40,000 years ago. So at some point we lived together in happiness, the 3 different races of humans, but then at some point us Homo sapiens went around and killed them all. And it took a long time for us to kill them all, and there must have been some wars. And I suspect that's where racism genetically comes from. We've remembered the people that look a bit like us but are a little bit different, we've got to kill them. And I think that spreads this hatred, because then we are facing people who are all still Homo sapiens. We're all the same type of human even, and yet we're still having this racism that we had for thousands of years, and that led to all of them dying. All the other ones. All the giant humans, they're gone. They're the Denisovans. All of the really smart humans are dead. That's the Neanderthals. And we've killed them all. Now we've bred a little bit of them still in some people's DNA, but we have killed them all. And look, racism's stupid, doesn't make sense, and it's just purely based on how much melanin is in your skin. And that's a genetic skin condition. You should not be proud of not having melanin. You should be happy that you have a lot of melanin, you're not going to get sunburned. But it's not something that we should be fighting over. We should all be on the same side, and same as with religion, we should be focusing on people who are like bad people, evil people, not on how likely you are to get sunburned. That is really stupid. Anyway, that's it from me, so bye bye.